Did you miss us? We are back after a brief 3-week hiatus. Believe us, we missed you. We are excited to be back on Trailblazer Weekly. Coming up on today's episode, men's and women's basketball were both in action last week. We'll get you caught up on all the results. We'll chat with women's basketball head coach JD Gustin.
Plus, you won't want to miss our fall semester's top 10 plays segment, where we take a look at the best plays from the fall. We'll also let you know when the basketball teams will be back in action after the holidays.
We've got it all in today's show, so don't you dare touch that dial. Trailblazer Weekly starts right now.
Live from the CEC studio at Dixie State University, it's Trailblazer Weekly with Keric Seegmiller. And Drayson Ball. This is Trailblazer Weekly.
Good afternoon to you. We are live inside the CEC TV studios on the Community Education Channel. That's TDS Cable Channel 22 locally, as well as the Dixie State Athletics YouTube page with another edition of Trailblazer Weekly. I'm Keric Seegmiller, and joining me as always is Drayson Ball. And Drayson, let me first just say Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and I've missed you too. I mean, it's been 3 weeks since our last show. Excited to be back here on the set. I'm starting to wonder if the show maybe had been canceled, if I just hadn't heard from anybody. If the show, they pulled the plug and they let us go a few episodes and said, we got to pull the plug on this thing. But I think we got something good going, and here we are, back with episode 14.
I think the most fortunate thing for us, Keric, is no one can get us to shut up. We come in here every week and we talk and we talk and we talk, and even if they cancel us, I don't think we'd be able to shut up even then. So it's good to be back, Keric. We got a great show. Merry Christmas to you guys out there. Happy holidays, especially to you, Keric. And let's get things going.
Certainly a fun time of year. We have a fun show planned for you today, like we teased in the open, and we're going to hit some of those top 10 plays from the fall semester. We'll be doing that throughout the year, into the spring semester as well. So basketball is lucky because they get to be part of the fall semester and the spring semester top 10 plays. So you'll see a lot more of the basketball in the spring one, but we've got some goodies for you, some basketball highlights in those top 10 as well. And then when the year's over, we'll put it all together and we'll pick the top 10 plays from the entire year. So it's going to be fun. We are here on Trailblazer Weekly, and let's start it off with the weekend recap. And in fact, it ran in, had a game even last night. We'll tell you about that in just a minute. We'll start with men's basketball. Trailblazers hosting New Mexico Highlands and CSU Pueblo on Friday and Saturday. Then the Trailblazers traveled to Lacey, Washington to battle nationally ranked St. Martin's last night. Let's break down all three of those games. Let's just go chronologically. We'll start Friday night, Drayson, and probably the one that we can spend the most time on as well. The Trailblazers 83-75 over New Mexico Highlands. The Cowboys were 7-1 coming into that game overall, 4-0 in conference play, having just defeated Westminster. No, they didn't play Westminster. I apologize. That was the first night of the weekend. They were going to Westminster the next night. The Cowboys won at Westminster the next night. But Dixie State was able to deal the Cowboys its first conference loss of the season, 83-75. And what I'll just say it, their most complete 40 minutes of basketball this season. The guys could not be stopped, dominated in the paint, hit threes, great defense. Man, what a performance that was for the Trailblazers Friday night to win that 183.
Yeah, and coming into that game, I mean, just talking to some of the players and some of the the coaches and stuff like that, they were obviously excited to get that home opening RMAC game underway, and then obviously it was a good opponent and a good win for the Trailblazers. You mentioned they shot well from three, 8 of 15 from beyond the arc in that game. Just over 50% is always good to shoot from three, and then 31 from 56 from the field. Just really a solid performance, and when you're making shots like that, you can be just about anybody, regardless of who you're playing. I thought they played tremendous defense as well. That's one of the big keys to why they were only limited to the Cowboys to 65 points, is just the amount of defense they played, and I think that's really was the key, the turning point for them, going along with making shots. If you can combine those two things in any given ball game, you got a chance against the best.
Certainly. I'm glad you brought that up because New Mexico Highlands was averaging right around 93 points per game coming in to that game. Trailblazers hold the Cowboys to a season low 65 points in that game. Like I mentioned, Cowboys turned right around the next night and won, and Westminster again got back on the winning track. So Trailblazers definitely an impressive win. Another thing that impressed me about that game was the fact that Trailblazers led early 3-2, small lead, and then a 10-0 run, or a quick run by the Cowboys. 10-0 run, and it's 12 to 5. I'm getting this on. Trailblazers had a 5-2 lead. Getting my nights mixed up. 5-2 lead. The run just wasn't making sense. Wasn't adding up in my head. 10-0 run for the Cowboys to take the 12-5 lead, and you're going, here we go. What's Dixie State going to do with it? They turn around, they chip away. Coach Judkins called a timeout, set the guys up. They played great on defense, started chipping away offensively, and not only tied the game, they took the lead, and they never looked back. I mean, New Mexico Highlands had a 7-footer on their roster, a 6'11" guy, and the Trailblazers kept going inside all night long. One of the guys that really gave them trouble was the guard, the D1 bounce back from Colorado State, Raquan Mitchell. He had 21 points, but a lot of those were in the first half. He was fairly quiet in the second half. Felt like the Trailblazers showed the conference that, hey, it was a statement win, that we can play with anybody on any given night, and no matter how athletic you are, we're going to challenge you. So it's a big win for the Trailblazers.
Yeah, it certainly was a big win. Obviously they played very well, and that was a good sign to kind of get that game out of the way. The RMAC Conference home opener, if you will. Good win for the Trailblazers.
Tough night the next night. In fact, the next two games were pretty tough. And I said all along, I said it on the broadcast Saturday night, it was a 77-66 loss to CSU Pueblo the next night. Pueblo was winless in conference play. They had lost at Westminster the night before, a game that they probably should have won. They led most of that game, got gassed, got a little tired late, and then lost in overtime. Come down to St. George, so you think, okay, they lost, they were tired in Salt Lake City. They come down to St. George, it's a 4-hour drive, they didn't get in until 3 a.m., but they were the better ball club in that. There's just no other way to put it in that, and you hate to say that, but a 77-66 win for CSU Pueblo Saturday night, and everything, and Coach Judkins was the first to say this in the postgame show on the radio as well. And he said everything that we did the night before, we just didn't do. He said, I don't know if we just came in and just expected that, they haven't won a conference game yet. It might be easy. He said, I hope that wasn't the case with our players, but we just did not do the same things that we did Friday night on Saturday. And it was tough. And I think because they played so well on Friday, that's what made it feel even worse on Saturday. And it was a tough one. And you're going to have those games. And just have to learn to fight through them. Yeah,
I mean, breaking down the numbers, I mean, it kind of comes down to, one main thing for me, and that's the rebounds. I mean, they were out-rebounded 44 to 27. I mean, they just were not getting the rebounds when they needed to. They gave up 14 offensive rebounds, which led to easy, extra possessions for CSU Pueblo. And then they weren't shooting the ball like they were the night before. I mean, obviously, we said that they shot over 50% the night before. They go 7 of 22 from beyond the arc, 24 of 60 overall from the field. And the exact things we were saying about Friday's night's game is that they were shooting well, they were playing great defensively. Those same things were not true the next night. They weren't shooting that well, and they were giving up some offensive boards and things like that. So when you combine those two things, like we just mentioned for Friday, but when you reverse them, a lot of times you get the similar result as you did in a loss.
The one bright spot Friday night, I shouldn't just say the one bright spot. There were a couple of bright spots. Cameron Chatwin, the reserve, he's been in a reserve role so far. Actually played at St. Martin's last year. He came in, had 18 points and 7 rebounds in 19 minutes of play. And that's a spot where they're going to be a little thin down low this year with, who knows, Austin Montgomery's status. They've got another big Patton that's injured at this point, and trying to work him back into playing shape. And so you've got Julian Decree, you've got Matt Conway, but then Cameron Chatwin kind of had a breakout game and showed Coach Judkins that, hey, I can contribute down here. I deserve these minutes, and I'm going to be working toward those. I mentioned to Coach Judkins on the postgame, I said, because he said, now we got to go play a tough St. Martin's team last night up in Lacey, Washington. And you don't always make those long trips for just one game. That was the situation this time. The Trailblazers went up last night, and I said to Coach on the postgame Saturday night, I said, well, at least this CSU Pueblo game doesn't have to be the last game that you remember going into the break. And he said, that's true. We get an opportunity to go back. Well, they might want it to be, because they went up to Lacey, Washington last week. And every once in a while you run up against a buzzsaw, I think on paper, Dixie State competes with this team. 9 out of 10 games, this is a competitive game. Trailblazers probably win a lot of those games. But St. Martin's last night, I mean, just you want to talk about breaking the numbers down. They were on fire from beyond the arc for the game. How about 14 of 33? They cooled off a little bit in the second half, but they made 11 threes in the first half, including 7 by their guard, E.J. Boyce, who had 7 threes in the first half. He finishes with 28 points on the night. It's 76-59 victory for St. Martin's up in Washington State last night. I think this is one of those that I don't even know how much you go back to the tape on this one. You go back a little bit, and Trailblazers had a hard time. There was a lid on the Trailblazers end. They had good looks. I was watching the game on the stream, and the Saints just couldn't miss. You're going to run into those types of games, and I think you just say, man, maybe we don't even look at the tape of this one and move forward, and we start focusing on UC Colorado Springs, who we play on January 4th.
Yeah, and maybe you can just chalk this one up to having 3 games in 5 nights. I mean, back from the weekend and then the long trip up to Lacey, Washington. I mean, this one really, it's sad to say it was kind of over at halftime. It was a 48-26 lead for St. Martin's at halftime. And the Trailblazers really just weren't able to get anything going offensively in that first half. Of course, they did outscore them in the second half, 33-28. But of course, by that time, you're down 22 points at halftime, especially in 3 games and 5 nights. A lot of times you chalk it up, and but that's one of those games like you were mentioning. You don't really want to take a whole lot from that because you were doing things well, but you weren't getting shots to fall. You were just 1 of 13 from beyond the arc, and obviously they were shooting the lights out of the gym, and that can be discouraging when your shots that you're normally hitting are not going in, and you're seeing the other team hit everything they throw up. It can be very discouraging for a team, especially after a long trip and a long 5 days. And so chalk that one up to just a little bit of a fatigue maybe, and then just not getting some things going your way.
Yeah, before we move on to the women's basketball as well, is the bright spot Tuesday night, last night, kind of like Saturday night, post-play. Julian Decree had his first career double-double, at least here at Dixie State, 11 points, 10 rebounds in that game. So good for him. I think he's going to be important to what the Trailblazers want to do down low this season. So,
absolutely. We stay on the basketball court now as the Trailblazers women's team completed and hosted New Mexico Highlands University and CSU Pueblo over the weekend as well. Keric, they got off to a good start on Friday with a 70-59 win over New Mexico Highlands. It was really a good game, and the Trailblazers was tied at halftime, 46-46, and then the Trailblazers kind of really extended their lead there in the third quarter and then ran away with it in the fourth quarter, outscoring New Mexico 25-15 in the fourth quarter. And it was a really fun game to watch because the Trailblazers did a lot of things well, especially in the second half, and they played defense very good. They were getting their shots to go. And it was just one of those really fun games to watch. And kind of one of those games we've become accustomed to watching with this year's women's basketball team.
Yeah, and there were some up and down moments throughout the first half. Like you said, they raced out to a lead, and then they went down. And what I love where Coach Gustin has this team, because we've seen some of these women's basketball teams over the year, not any of these Coach Gustin-led teams, but they get down at all, things aren't going their way, and they would kind of shut down every once in a while. But Coach Gustin has instilled a never say die, never quit attitude in these girls, and they fought back in the second half. Fought through those times where maybe it just feels like you're walking in mud. And then they had a great fourth quarter. Put it all together, started hitting from the outside. And Kesley Stevenson hit 4 threes in the game. She had 18 points. Morgan Myers, though, we continue to talk about her defensive prowess and her presence on the defensive end. But she scored in double figures, I think 4 or 5 games in a row now. 14 points. She had 5 rebounds. Didn't have a steal, ironically enough. But her offensive production is really starting to help the Trailblazers as well. Allie Franks with 12, Lisa Van Kampen with a double-double, 11 points, and a career-high 17 rebounds. So it was huge. And for Dixie State to fight and to win this conference game at home, at that point they were undefeated at home, still on the season. I was very, very impressed with what I saw. And honestly, it carried over, that fourth quarter carried over to the first 35 minutes of the game the next night. The Trailblazers, by all intents and purposes, if you were at the game Saturday night, you saw a 73-70 loss to CSU Pueblo. I'm just going to go out and flat out say Dixie State was the better team in that game. They had things wrapped up with about 5.5 minutes to go. Unfortunately, the Trailblazers just did not score over the final 5.5 minutes, and there's a couple different things, to that. CSU Pueblo switched defenses. They went to a 2-3 zone, and it just kind of caught Trailblazers off guard where they were dribbling kind of around the arc. But still, you hate to lose that game, and we talked on the radio with Coach Gustin about this as well, but there was a ton of positives in that game and a lot to take even from that loss, and I think they're going to be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to Friday night, and you can say, man, that was a signature win on the season. That was one you can go back to maybe 2 or 3 weeks from now and say, what did we do well in that game against New Mexico Highlands, and that what we can do going forward. And that would have been true the next night as well on Saturday had they been able to maintain that and win that ball game. But really just one of those cases where you got to be able to adjust on the fly. Teams can do that. A lot of times that's a strategy. Is we're going to play one way for 35 minutes, and then we're going to throw a wrench into the equation defensively for the last 5 minutes. And that's really where the game changed, like you mentioned. They went into that 2-3 zone, and it was not what they had used to seeing. I don't know how much they played against 2-3 zones this season. That's one of the first that I remember. And it really just kind of, like I mentioned, threw a wrench into the equation. They just were not able to get what they were getting offensively in the previous 3.5 quarters. And it kind of just was one of those situations where you're like, all right, well, we got to learn from this. Going forward, now we know what we need to do in a situation where we're facing a different defense than what we're used to. Obviously, in the second half, did not get the threes to go, just 1 of 8 after shooting 50%, 8 of 16 in the first half. If those shots fall, if even 2 or 3 of those shots fall, it's a totally different ball game. Probably a 7 or 8, 9-point swing either way. And so, again, one of those games where you played really good for 35 minutes, and then you kind of let things go. But you got to be able to improve and make changes.
Absolutely, and it's early, and the team's young, still growing, and Coach Gustin will have them in the spot that they need to be, and they'll be just fine. Of course, Trailblazers, have the week off now, and for Christmas, and they come back and will host a very tough NAIA team in Antelope Valley. Not your typical NAIA team, a lot better than the Northern New Mexico team that was here a few weeks ago. They've only lost, I believe, 1 game. They played D1s, they played D2s. I mean, they'll play anybody, and they're a tough team. So it'll be a good challenge over the break as well, and then back into RMAC play after the new year, January 4th and 5th. The Trailblazers might as well get used to living out of a suitcase in January, because of the 4 weekends in the month, they're only home one of those weekends. The script will flip in February, but get ready for some road trips for our men's and women's basketball teams in January. We got to take a break. When we come back, women's basketball head coach J.D. Gustin will join us right here on the set to talk about his team's 5-3 start, 2-3 right now in RMAC play. We'll break it all down with Coach Gustin coming up after this break on Trailblazer Weekly.
Like John McCain and other people would just sit there quietly on the sides, and that many Republican activists would refrain from registering their disapproval in the peanut gallery?
Some might argue that Republican activist is an oxymoron.
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of activism.
Right.
But you see what I'm saying? If you just flip it right over on its head.
I would like to flip it on its head, and in fact, I'm already doing that because my own position is free speech is free speech. Okay, and I'm kind of advocating for something that I'm really not supporting in this respect. As far as protesting or not protesting and being able to recognize your audience, what we need on either side, I don't care where you're coming from, is the ability to recognize the audience.
Where do you find the titans of classical music in St. George? Classical music on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM. Where do you find the legends of jazz? Evenings on Radio St. George, 100.3 FM.
Trailblazer Weekly is presented by the Dixie State Campus Store, the official store for Trailblazer and Dixie State clothing, as well as cheap textbooks, discounted computers, and supplies for students. They're located in the second floor of the Gardner Center and are open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. during the week. Closed on Saturdays and Sundays? You can stop by any time because they'll be loaded with great Trailblazer swag all the time.
Welcome back inside Trailblazer Weekly. The women's basketball team 8 games into the 2018-19 season, 5-3 overall. Here to help us break it all down and recap the first 8 games of the year is women's basketball head coach J.D. Gusson. Coach, thanks so much for being here with us today. First of all, let me just be, probably not the first to say, but the first to say here on the set, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. We appreciate you making time for us in this busy time. We're excited to chat with you, so thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and Merry Christmas to you all as well.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Let's just, a lot to talk about. Like I said, we're 8 games in, and we've seen a lot of good and maybe some stuff that isn't quite as good, but a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss over those first 8 games of the year. First of all, let's just talk about this year's team. Still pretty young, but some leaders. You get a senior back in Lisa Van Kampen. You got Miley Richardson. Let's just talk about this year's team and what you've maybe seen the biggest growth in from day one in September when you can start working individually with the kids, and then into October into practice, and now believe it or not, we're already at the holiday break. It's flown by, but what have you seen the biggest growth in from day one maybe to now?
That's a good question, Keric. There's so much that we're trying to grow in. I don't know if I can pinpoint one thing. Like we're just we're new. Still trying to figure each other out, and not only that, but figure out what we do offensively and defensively still. It's a new defensive system we're trying to implement this year, so we're still trying to figure that out. Our offensive stuff that we do is a little bit unique and different and maybe a little bit more complex than other folks do, and so we're trying to figure that out. So there's growth everywhere right now. But you mentioned we're at the holiday break already. I can't even believe it. It's just flown by. And the one thing that's, I guess, been great for me coaching this group is I really enjoy them. I love going to practice every day. I love being around them. They're a fun group of young people that really work hard. And the biggest difference between now and where we've been in our program is I believe they all truly care about what we're trying to do. And I feel like when you have good players and you run good stuff and your kids care and believe in each other, that's when you can do some pretty cool things. And we're getting close.
Well, certainly, you mentioned that defensive system that you run, and then it's an up and down offensive game as well. And we've heard you say time and time again over the last couple of years that, hey, when we get this roster the way we want it, we believe that we're going to put a fun product on the court, and people are going to enjoy watching us play. I know I certainly have. Obviously, the change in defensive philosophy and the fast and the press and that probably comes with some extra conditioning along the way. Got to be in shape to play that way. How did the girls? You did a little bit last year, but how do the girls react to something like that? It seems like you have a good group that are willing to basically do anything for you.
Yeah, well, again, you have to have the personnel. I think we're faster. We're maybe more instinctual in that style of game. We're still trying to figure it out. Of course, we're not even close to being perfect, but we feel like it's a fun style to play and to coach and to watch. And but we still have a long ways to go though before we put a finished product out there for sure.
Absolutely. That's still only 8 games in, a ton of basketball that we played, a lot to be determined as you kind of march toward into January and then into February, and before we know it, we'll be in that RMAC tournament race, and there'll be a lot to talk about there. But let's talk about how there have been ups and there have been downs, and the thing that just keeps coming to my mind is Rochelle Blazard's buzzer-beating shot against St. Martin's in the triple overtime game is still one of the most exciting games that I've ever called and been a part of. It just seems like your team's having fun this year, and even after a tough loss Saturday night, still with disappointed but smiles on their faces and ready to go back to work.
Yeah, that triple overtime win was fun for sure. I feel like it gave us some confidence. That's a good St. Martin's team. I don't know you want to talk about the Saturday night game yet or what? But like, you know, I loved it. I mean, that was definitely disappointing, but there was a ton of good things that we were able to take away from it. I mean, Blazard's, she's been solid. Like, I don't know, like, the St. Martin's game. Like, what else do you want to?
No, it's just a fun group. I mean, it seems they're out there, and that shows on the court with the way that they play together and their team chemistry, and you can see it. And then, of course, it all starts in practice and with the way that you guys encourage them to, you know, to be friends. Hey, get together off the court, and it just been fun to watch them this year.
Yeah, let's go back to that St. Martin's game. I mean, how do you obviously, you know, it's back and forth, you're up and down, and you get in overtime, double overtime, and you know, how do you kind of coach a game like that differently in overtime versus like you would during the regulation period? You know, how do you go into an overtime period and say, hey, this is what we got to do, or is this anything different that you do, or how do you go about doing that?
No, everything's the same. Yeah, we need to try and keep your composure, which we've done a way better job of this year. That goes with our leadership, and we still have a long ways to go with it. But the biggest thing about that game was that we stayed composed. We stayed in it. We believe we can win. Our 3 losses this year, we believe that we can beat all 3 of those teams. You know, we played poorly at Westminster, and they're good. They have the best right now. They have the best player in the league for sure. Black Hill State, we ran into a buzzsaw. They were firing all cylinders that night. They're good. They're really well coached. And then you know, the Pueblo game was just a great learning experience. Here, fact is, this is the first year we've had a good team. All right, our good team has never been in a situation like that before. We've never been up 10 with 4 to go or 5 to go, whatever it was. And, you know, the wheels fell off a little bit. We lost our composure. We panicked. The zone had very little to do with it. We've seen a ton of zone offense this year already. We run it in practice. We have our own zone offense. It was simply a matter of panicking. And who's going to step up at that point and say, okay, here, we got this. Take a deep breath. All we needed to do was execute 2 out of 5 possessions to finish that game, and it was over. The foul, I mean, and definitely not Blazer's fault, but the 3-point foul with 3 to go on their best player was a huge. It was 70-64. We foul her when she's 5 feet off the line. That's when things really started to tighten up. And teams that have been there before, that are experienced, like, they're able to overcome those kind of things. We're not there yet. Now we're going to be, but it just doesn't happen. It's a process, and it's a process at every level, at every program. In the NBA, you look at the Jazz right now. It's a process. I mean, I felt like we took steps forward, and I just want us to continue to.
Yeah, I think Keric and I mentioned in the first segment, you know, previous women's basketball teams, you know, might have. I'll reference again the St. Martin's game. It seemed like every time you looked up, you were down by 5 in the overtime period, and you kept coming back. How do you instill a resiliency in the team to where, like we mentioned earlier, previous teams might have just given up and thrown in the towel? How do you instill a resiliency to hey, we gotta be able to play this way when we're up by 10 and this way when we're down by 10? How do you instill that resiliency in your team, your players?
Almost all this stuff starts with leadership, and we have good leadership not only from Lisa and from Miles, but some of our young kids are starting to truly lead. The other thing is, it helps to care about each other. Like, it helps to go on the floor and really have a real relationship with the kid that's next to you, and not only be playing. You know, we talk about playing for each other all the time. That's a cliche, but we really believe it. They were able to do that night, and we're trying to instill that every night. We believe that we're never going to be out of it. We have good basketball players, and it all starts with that. Okay, now we have to get experience doing what we do offensively, doing what we do defensively, and then I believe championships are won behind closed doors, in team meetings and those kind of things. We're not there yet. We have to have those still.
Well, and it shows too. I mean, I love that when you talk about, you know, playing for each other and being a team. I mean, you have a player, and I just want to talk about. I wish we had 30 minutes that we could sit in here and talk about each and every player, because we want to mention them all because they're all a big part of this team. But you have a player like let's say Allie Franks. I mean, she starts the year. She's a junior there's 2 seniors, and the rest are below her as far as what class they are. She's a junior, and she starts the first 5 or 6 games, she comes off the bench, provides a big spark, and now she's worked her way into a starting role, and we'll see if that continues to be that way. But just talk about, how do you, first of all, tell an older player like that, hey, we need you to come off the bench, and you're going to be good. You're going to play a lot of minutes still. And then for her to respond that way and say, okay, coach, I'll do what you need. It just seems like that is exactly that attitude that you're talking about. We play for each other.
Totally. That I'm extremely proud of Allie for that. The fact is, like this talented group we have, they're all really close in terms of talents and abilities, and a number of them haven't separated themselves. And Allie finally, kind of did, but she had no problem coming off the bench. Like she doesn't. We're past that in our program. I hope it's not about that for us. We want to find a way to win the basketball. Winning a college basketball game is hard. Like folks, like it's hard, and it takes everyone, whether you're playing 40 or whether you don't play a minute. And just the way that Allie is went about her business, coming to work every day, having a great attitude, leading, being positive regardless of how much she plays. Is absolutely critical, and will continue to be critical as we move forward.
Of course, now that I say that, I remember a conversation I've had with you before that they say, hey, the 5 that start for us maybe aren't necessarily our best 5 players. It's all about, combinations and who's playing with who. And
right.
It seems like we've seen that this year. A lot of different lineups, a lot of different combinations, and they've been able to get the job done. Another player that has really, Mariah Martine, we can call her Mrs. Reliable. She's out there. She's just, same thing every night. Trailblazer's been awesome this year. But how about, we've talked about Morgan Myers before, and in the last few nights on the broadcast, I've been saying, we've been talking about how good of a defensive player she is, and you've been telling us right from the start that, hey guys, she's got a good offensive game as well, and in the last 5 games, you've really started to see the offensive side of her game come out, especially on the road. She had a monster game, was it South Dakota School of Mines, I believe, had a huge game, and then ever since then has been in double figures every night and been really contributing on both ends of the floor. Just talk about the growth that she's made, and she's started the last couple of games as well and kind of growing into that role as well.
Yeah, she's easily my biggest surprise coming into this year. We talked to her in the spring about committing to being a basketball player over the course of the summer, and she did. Like, she's always been a tremendous athlete. She was a soccer player, and she was a track star, and she's never really committed herself to being a basketball player, a college basketball player, and she did that this summer, and it's starting to pay dividends. She wrecked that game at South Dakota. Like, she's the one that on both ends she wrecked it. There's no doubt about it. She was the reason that we won, for sure.
Coach, let's talk about some of the, I'll call them newcomers, either freshmen or transfers. Trailblazer, Lennon Pavlica, Maddie Loftus. Talk about a little bit of those few of those players that have either come in as freshmen or, like I said, transfers. What they've added to your program and kind of what you see forward going for them.
Well, we brought Blazard and Loftus in for one because they're good players and they're awesome people, but to help bring us leadership. Blazard's a return missionary. Like, she's older. Like, she's seen a lot of stuff. That's what our program needs. Like, we have a lot of these young kids that are super talented, but we need some stability, some maturity, some folks that come to work every day and know how to what it takes. Like, it's when you come in as a freshman, you have no idea what this is about. You think you do, and you have no clue. Our freshmen are doing a great job. Pavlica and Mooney. Mooney's going to be a tremendous player, you guys. I'm telling you right now. she, Lana's been fantastic, but they don't know. And how do you until you get some experience? Those JUCO kids, we're asking them to come in and to help these younger kids, learn how to do it, figure it out.
I don't know if we got the clock here, Coach. We've got to do a little bit of a rapid fire segment. We do this with all our guests.
We do this with everybody.
So let me do a quick rapid fire segment with you. So let's go favorite NBA team. What do you got?
Oh man, I don't know. Maybe the Warriors.
The Warriors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite.
Actually, no, it's the Jazz. I'm a Jazz fan all of a sudden. What am I doing? I love Snyder. I haven't been an NBA fan for a year. I like watching and I like players. But I love the Jazz. I love what they're doing. I love how they share it. Yeah.
I like you bring up Snyder because it comes from the start. He's an incredible coach.
There's no question.
Just
No question.
Do the job
Brilliant guy.
Okay. Favorite NBA player.
I love LeBron. But I think that's hard because there's a bunch. But I think he's me. I love MJ, but LeBron's fighting to be the best ever, I think. He's right there.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm a big Michael Jordan fan,
Me too.
but I got to agree with that because he does. He's not just scoring, but he's playing everywhere. So I'm 100% on board.
And then we'll go last one. Favorite NBA or maybe college arena that you've ever been to or attended a game with?
Well, I used to go back and work camps at Duke with Krzyzewski.
Okay.
And
Nice.
I learned a lot from those folks. And I was able to play pickup games in there after camp. Wojo, he's actually Wojciechowski, the head coach at Marquette now. He wanted to play 2-on-2 full court after camp. So he'd work from 6 in the morning and get off at 10 at night. And then he and Collins and another friend of mine from Montana and I played 2-on-2 full court to 100. 2s and 3s. That's easily my favorite play. Cameron's an unbelievable place. And I'm a big Duke guy, so I got to mention Cameron. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. That's good to get to know those things about you, Coach. And just last question we want to ask you. Just back to the schedule quickly before we go to break. You have the holiday break. You're back on the 29th to play a tough Antelope Valley team. You're looking at it. I mean, it's not going to be a break by any stretch of the imagination. But what are you looking at specifically? Obviously, you want to win the game, but what are you looking at specifically playing this game and where it's placed in the break before you back into the conference season in January?
It's placed there for a reason. It's to try and prepare us to get ready to go back into the RMAC. I didn't want to play quite as good as team as Antelope Valley is, to be honest with you. They have a relatively new coach, and they do a great job. They play really hard. They're really athletic. They're up and down. We're gonna well, I shouldn't say too much right now, but we'll have to play a little differently, to be honest with you. But it's a big game. I mean, we're here protecting Burns Arena is a big deal to us. The biggest thing why I struggled on Saturday night's game isn't the way that we finished. It's because we lost it I don't want to do that ever again, here with our team. And it's a big deal to me, trying to instill that into our kids. They're slowly getting it. But anytime, I don't care who it is, comes into our gym, we need to take care of business. Very serious about that.
Absolutely. I've heard it said, especially in a tough travel conference like this, if you can go and at least split most places on the road and then make sure that you protect home court, you put yourself in a good spot. So certainly, Coach, we appreciate you stopping by. Our time's kind of run out here on the segment, but just wanted to let you know that we're really enjoying. Drayson and I calling these women's basketball games together on the broadcast. Really enjoying watching your team play and watching your staff coach and the interactions that you have with your players, and can see that they respect you, and you and your staff have brought a level of just respect and just taking this program to the next level. It's been fun to watch. So
cool. Well, thank you guys for doing this. This is a cool thing. This Trailblazer show you got going on. It's kind of fun.
We get spoiled here. The folks here at CEC TV really spoil us here and with our games, and so we really appreciate all the hard work they put into it.
They're really good too. These folks behind here, they're really good. So
I agree with you 100%.
Merry Christmas, you guys. Have a great
appreciate it, Coach.
All right.
We're gonna jump into our next break, our final break of the show. When we come back, we've got the fall semester top 10 plays. You aren't going to want to miss this. Stick around for those top plays after this timeout on Trailblazer Weekly.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
For over a century, Dixie State University has been shaping the trailblazers of tomorrow by providing a culture of active learning, active life. With a paradigm of real-world experience mixed with cutting-edge technologies and rich traditions, we provide one of the most affordable educations in the West, set against the most stunning backdrop on the planet.
See on page 4 that the projections need to be earthquake next Thursday.
Seriously? Thursday? Can't do that.
This is really inconvenient.
I have yoga that day. I have no time for this. So
I can't do Thursday, but I can do Friday. Disasters don't plan ahead. You can. Talk to your loved ones about how you're going to be ready in an emergency. Don't wait. Communicate.
Fast-paced family life in need of a slowdown?
Hello, I'm Dr. Spruce. Did you know all those green shapes on maps are parks and forests? It's true. Visit discovertheforest.org and plan to visit a park or forest near you, instead of just wondering what it would have been like.
While the word forest might make you think of distant lands from far, far away, please note parks and forests are closer than you think, which means things like beautiful scenery, fresh air, and family time are also closer than you think.
Hey guys, how are you today? Good. I'm here to talk about how with technology you can make amazing worlds. Come with me. My team and I bring the Halo world to life. Is that you? That is me. I wasn't a math genius and I knew nothing about coding. But you guys do. You guys have the power to change things. I want your job. I want you to have my job.
Trailblazer Weekly is the official show of Dixie State Athletics. You can keep up with all the Trailblazer athletic action with pictures, stats, and game recaps at dixiestateathletics.com. While you're at it, don't forget you can follow our show on Twitter as well with @DSUBlazerWeekly.
The fall semester is officially over, but before we can close the door on what was a fantastic season, Keric, we've compiled a fall semester top plays list. We had a multitude of incredible plays to choose from over the fall semester, but with the help of some of our coaches, we've narrowed it down to the top 10. Keric, this is a segment we've talked about for a couple of months now. We've finalized it before during planning for this show, and I think we're both extremely excited to kind of go through the top 10 plays. I know just me personally preparing for it and watching the plays, it just kind of gave me goosebumps. I mentioned a few times, and so it was really fun to be able to do this segment. I hope we can do it and you guys can enjoy it.
No, it's going to be a blast, and like I said, it was tough to narrow it down to the top 10 because there were so many, and we're going through game film and asking coaches and trying to figure out where we're going to go with this, and we finally, we got some good input from the coaches and said, we felt like these were our best plays, and we were able to narrow that down into this top 10 list. I mean, especially as you go into like the 5 and under, I mean, they were all like top play material. So it was tough to kind of rank these, and you're going to feel bad putting one above another, but I think we've got it where it needs to be. What we'll do is we'll show you the play and then just give a little brief analysis on it as well, and just our thoughts on the play. So you don't want to hear me just blabbing about it. Without further ado, let's do this top 10 plays of the fall semester.
Let's get it started. We'll start out at number 10. We're going to men's soccer at Colorado School of Mines. No score in the 3rd minute. Zach Nilsson goes full extension to save this shot. The Trailblazers would go on to lose that one, however, to the number 16 ranked Orediggers 1-0. I loved that play from Zach Nilsson. Just if you notice, he not only jumps and tips it, but then also hits the crossbar at the top and goes over the net. So I thought that was really a really fun one, and one that was an incredible play. It's so much harder than it looks. Oh, if you look at that, you think, I can just jump up and touch that, but it's so much harder than it actually looks.
I mean, the shot is from 25 yards out. Plus, it's a scorcher. I mean, it's bound for the back of the net. If you don't get a hand on that ball, it's a goal. And that's why when I've been talking with the coaches about this, I talked to Coach Johnny Broadhead, and he said, I mean, this has got to be in your list because this is as good as a save can ever be, any save. And I agree 100%. And that was, you're playing at a ranked opponent on the road, and that was in the first 3 minutes of the game. That goal goes in, it changes the whole complexity of the game. Now, they did end up losing the game later, but just by a 1-0 count, and that game could have gone either way. If that goal goes through, it's a totally different game, and maybe you lose it by multiple goals. So Zach Nilsson, fantastic goalkeeper, and then like I said, that's one of those ones that could have been higher on the list, but we've got some great ones moving forward. So congratulations, Zach and the men's soccer team, for landing there. Let's move to number 9. I love this play. Men's basketball taking on New Mexico Highlands. The Cowboys had started to creep back into this game, and you might not think initially that this is a top play. What's going on out there? The ball's everywhere. Jack Pagenkopf picks it up behind the back to Dub Price, and when you go behind the back, the shooter, it's a rule. You have to make the shot, and Dub Price knocks it in. That put the game out to about a 15-point lead again. and basically sent the message, midway through that second half on Friday against Mexico Highlands, we're going to win this game, and there's nothing you can do about it. And it just was a fantastic play. The pass, the finish, Pagan Koff to Dub Price. Love it.
Yeah, the thing I loved about that play is from the second angle, it really kind of shows you, going around the back, what a great angle that doesn't really give you from the first angle that we had. The CEC crew has that multiple camera setup in the Burns Arena. They do an excellent job there of getting every possible angle, and that second one really did it for me. Just to be able to see that and think, to have the presence of mind to not only pick it up off the floor, but then know you got Dub Price on your left and then around the back to nail it for the three.
Well,
it's tremendous.
And the one thing that I didn't mention, if you watch that scrum, Dub Price was the one that dove on the floor. He laid out and actually tipped the ball to where it could get back to Pagan Koff. Pagan Koff rewards him for that with the pass and the finish. So there's your number 9, top play, Pagan Koff to Dub Price.
Now on to number 8, Keric. We go to women's soccer. They're taking on CSU Pueblo when Cammie Hunter lofts this one into Whitley Johns, who splits between two defenders and goes top shelf for her second goal of the match on a one-timer goal. For those of you who don't know, that's when you only touch the ball once. That's all the Trailblazers would need, as they would cruise to a 2-0 victory. I love this play from Whitley Johns. This was her 11th goal of the season, and obviously she went on to score many more. And I love this one because she didn't even have to touch the ball or control it in any sort of way. She just got to her spot, slung in between two defenders, got kind of around them, and then just one shot with the left foot there and put it in top shelf, top right corner.
Oh, excellent pass. You might not say that, that's not like an accurate pass, but, Hunter knew exactly where she was putting that ball, and Pueblo had just given it away. A long pass forward, and Whitley Johns just lets it bounce, take that extra bounce right between two defenders, and she lined herself up right where she needed to be. She didn't need to control it. She didn't need to move it. She saw that top shelf open, boom, one-timer into the top corner of the net. And that will land you in the top 10 plays of the fall semester, and that could be in the running for the top 10 plays of the year. We'll have to wait and see. Moving to the volleyball court on the road at Colorado Mesa. The Trailblazers had already defeated Colorado Mesa at home. They had to play in Grand Junction, and the number 7 top play, I should say the top plays, came from this. Dixie State jumped out to a 10-0 lead in the match in Grand Junction and basically said, this is a message. We're going to win this match. They had, in the first 10 points of the match that led to the 10-0 lead, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. When will it end? But 5. 5 blocks in that 10-0 start to the match. I talked to Coach Felder, and she said this absolutely has to be in your top 10 because it was incredible. You're on the road at a conference rival. Everyone is pumped up, and you go out there, and not only you take a 10-0 lead, but you basically telling your opponent, you're going to have a tough time getting stuff over the net tonight. And what an incredible start that was.
And that's not even surprising considering the tremendous season our volleyball team had. They were an excellent defensive team, an excellent blocking team. It's not really surprising to see them get out to a 10-0 lead and do it in that fashion. Let's move down to our number 6 spot on the list. We're going to the football field when Trailblazers were taking on South Dakota Mines. Trailblazers had just given up the go-ahead touchdown late in the fourth quarter when Isaiah Wooden receives this reverse handoff on the ensuing kickoff from Aaron Simpson. And Isaiah Wooden says, "Excuse me, but I've got somewhere to be." He goes 92 yards all the way to the house. Ties the game at 44, and Dixie State would go on to win that one 51-47. That was really, for us, when we were calling that game, one of the turning points, because it was about 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and they had just scored, go-ahead 44-37, and then the very next play, Isaiah Wooden goes to the house and ties it up. That was really the momentum swing and late in that game, and that was all the Trailblazers needed to go on and win that one 51-47.
Well, I think there was some audio with that clip, too. Hopefully they had it turned down, because probably all you would have heard was me screaming and going crazy. But that was a huge turning point in that game, and credit to the team for calling that play and knowing when to insert those trick plays. It's always no pun intended, a tricky situation to know when exactly you plug those in, and that was exactly the right one. And not everyone was fooled, but everybody was in the right spot and made blocks. And Isaiah made a great spin move and that play was fantastic from Isaiah Wooden. And that game was one of the, with the exception of maybe the Colorado School of Mines game, probably the most exciting home game of the year. I know we had a lot of fun that night up in the press box at Trailblazer Stadium, but big time play by Isaiah Wooden and Aaron Simpson. Can't forget him. He was in that 92-yard kick return touchdown as well. Staying inside Trailblazer Stadium, we move to number 5 and women's soccer. Nicole Mertz has made a career of these flip throws, and it doesn't always lead directly to goals, though this time it did. Alexa Ashton gets ahead on it, heads it in to give Dixie State a 1-0 lead in their quarterfinal RMAC game against MSU Denver. The Trailblazers would go on to win that match. Like I said, she's done that flip throw a million times, but doesn't always lead the goal. This time it did. It's at number 5 for a reason, and probably could be higher. I don't think people realize, first of all, how difficult that throw is. I'd look like a fool trying that. And then to be able to time the jump and out-jump your opponents and then to direct it right where it needs to be. I mean, all facets of this play, just incredible.
And not only that, is when it happened during the game. I mean, it was against it was in your quarterfinal match. If it was on a Tuesday in the regular season, it might not be as high, but the game in which it was in was truly incredible.
Just a few minutes into the match as well,
exactly.
Set the tone.
You betcha. Let's move down to our number 4 spot. We're going back to men's soccer versus CSU Pueblo. The match was tied at 2 in double overtime, just minutes from the game's end. When the ball was centered to Moises Medina, he passes ahead to Yandir Porta, who shakes one defender and then calls game. Porta sneaks the golden goal past the defender, and the Trailblazers win it 3-2. A tremendous play from Yandir Porta to get around one defender and then kind of just curl that one in. Not a super flashy play, but did just enough to kind of curl it around and sneak it in past the keeper there.
Wasn't going to waste that opportunity. The thing about that play that I love, I mean, you talk about like in football, a quarterback hanging in there to make a pass and gets destroyed. Moises Medina making that pass, I mean, if you go back and you watch it, I mean, he ends up on the turf. There's a defender making a sliding tackle. He's able to just get that ball away in time. Medina spins to the ground, and then Porta does the rest. But like I said, the golden goal, winning that game in double overtime. Very exciting moment for the men's soccer team, and just fun stuff. It's a fun segment. We got to do stuff like this more often. Let's move to number 3. Back to volleyball. The Trailblazers volleyball squad started the season on the road at Northwest Nazarene. Tough place to play. Always a great crowd. When they played Northwest Nazarene, the home squad jumped out to a 2-0 lead. You thought maybe the Trailblazers would be done, but nope, had other plans. Rallied off 3 consecutive set victories to win the match 3-0. So we show you for the number 3 top plays, the winning plays in set 3, set 4, and set 5. Trailblazers would win that match 3-2. And Coach Felder, when I talked to her about that play, just said, we love playing there. The crowd is always fantastic. It's loud. They want to be a part of an atmosphere that's leading to a win. And they thought they were going to get the win, and then Dixie said, turn it around and said, nope, we're going home with a win over the number 19th ranked team in the country.
Yeah, and another win over a top 20 opponent. They did that as well in last season as well. So tremendous year for the volleyball team, and obviously evident with that series of plays there. But let's move down to number 2. We go to women's basketball versus St. Martin's. The Trailblazers trail by 3, 4.4 seconds left in overtime. The ball is inbounded to Rochelle Blazard, and she says, we ain't going home yet. She splashes in a 3-pointer at the buzzer to send the game to double overtime. Blazard finished with a team-high 24 points and 6 of 11 from downtown. No threes bigger than that one, Keric. And the Trailblazers went on to win that game in triple overtime, 107-103. That was one of the funnest games I've ever been a part of. NBA, college, high school, anything I've ever played in, anything I've ever witnessed. That was one of the funnest games I've ever been a part of. And to have Rochelle Blazard just have, I mentioned on the broadcast, ice in her veins to nail that one to send it into double overtime and eventually go on to win it. That was really fun and definitely deserving of the number 2 spot.
Are your eardrums still busted from my call on that final play? Everything about that play, just worked to perfection. I mean, you look at the play, you know that she's even, Van Kampen's upsetting the screen, and she can leak out to the right side, and if Blazard feels like she doesn't have the shot, then she can dish it out. But we had her on the show just the week after that, and she said, no, it was always in my mind, I'm taking that shot. I want the shot, and she made it count. And, I kept saying in that game, how many lives did the Trailblazers have? They continued to come back, and she made that shot, and I don't think after she made that shot there was any question the Trailblazers were going to win that game. Number one top play of the fall semester. It was hard to decide which one it was going to be, but we got to go with football. The Trailblazers had an opportunity for a field goal, missed it. Then Abraham Reinhart, the very next play with less than a minute left, interception. The following play, Mike Sanders finding Xavier Smith in the end zone to lead Dixie State to the victory over number 6 Colorado School of Mines. The Trailblazers with one of the biggest wins, probably the biggest win in the D2 era for football. And, we were on the call with that game, and the Trailblazers winning this one. And 52-45 are the number 6 team in the country. I think there was, between that play and the Blazers' buzzer beater, if it had been to win the game, maybe that one moves into number 1, but it's because of the gravity of the situation, first loss for Colorado School of Mines of the season, and just huge win for the Trailblazers. We got to go number 1 with that one.
Totally agree. I mean, that was such a fun game as well. I mean, just the amazing comeback and the back and forth nature of that game, and just the ups and downs that were felt in that final 2 minutes after driving down the field and thinking we're going to win this game, and then missing the field goal, and then only to have it to be resolved a couple plays later with that touchdown in the end zone. It was such a fun victory, and one that I'll certainly never forget.
Man, top 10 plays. So there you go. The top 10 plays of the fall semester. And believe it or not, the show has flown by. We've got a couple minutes to just wrap it up. We'll keep it right here and, just talk about that fall semester briefly. Quickly do want to mention, obviously, we're at the Christmas, the holiday break. No games until December 29th. The women's team will host Antelope Valley. We've talked a lot about that. While the men's team, they're hopping in a bus. And hopefully they don't run into too much weather. They're driving up to Laramie, Wyoming, and we'll have an exhibition game up at the University of Wyoming. Division I school, member of the Mountain West Conference. That'll be a tough, obviously a tough place to play, but a good learning moment for this Trailblazer squad, and something I think that they'll be able to take back and say, we'll be okay going into our next conference games.
Yeah, I have no doubt about it. And Keric, obviously it's one of those fun times of year as we're wrapping up the show to kind of reflect on what we've seen in the first the fall semester, and then be excited to know what we're going to have in the spring semester. And I think we should wish everyone a Merry Christmas, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year, which our next show is going to be not for a few weeks at least.
For a few weeks, not at least till after the new year. Once school's back in, we'll be back on that following Wednesday, and we'll be ready to rock and roll. So I want to wish you a Merry Christmas as well. Real quick, we got about a minute left on the show. I want to ask you, as we're wrapping up the fall semester, put you on the spot, favorite moment of the fall semester.
I think my favorite moment was after the football win, just going down, after they beat.
Yeah.
Excuse me, the number 6 team, Colorado School of Mines, after they won that game, just going down onto the field and being able to interview Coach, just kind of have that moment with Coach McClure and just talking to him and hearing what he had to say about his players and just kind of the emotions of that win and being able to kind of experience that in some form or another there on the field with the players doing that interview. That was really special, really fun.
It was incredible, and that game is definitely high up on my list of fall moments. Probably one of the biggest football games I've ever called. That St. Martin's game, though, that basketball game, that women's basketball game, I kid you not, I keep telling people this, and it was probably the funnest basketball game I've ever called, and the most exciting. And so there you go. So those two will probably share it, in mind. So fun fall semester. Can't wait to see what the spring semester has in store for us. Our time is gone. Another edition of Trailblazer Weekly is in the books. Remember, you can watch the show anytime on demand at youtube.com/Dixie State Athletics. For Drayson Ball and the entire CEC TV crew, I'm Keric Seegmiller. We want to wish you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Holiday Season, and a Happy New Year. Thanks for making us part of your day. We'll see you next time on Trailblazer Weekly.